Hi there, Alison here with another Cab Franc du jour. Today we're on the Tuscan coast and we're looking at the Duemani 2018 CiFra Cab Franc. While my knowledge and understanding of Cab Franc in Italy is still relatively limited, if I had to choose one individual that I get the sense is the flag bearer for the grape variety in the country, it would be undoubtedly Luca di Roma. Luca's wine career spans several decades, and he's probably best known for his time as consulting enologist for Le Macchiole in Bolgheri from 1991 until 2015. And it's here where Luca's influence and belief in Cabernet Franc as a star variety in Tuscany really began. He was instrumental in the gradual transitioning of one of the estate's flagship cuvées, the Paleo Rosso, to become eventually 100% Cab Franc by 2001, and it's remained that way ever since. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, with all those indigenous grape varieties in Italy, why Cab Franc? Well, Cab Franc actually has a really long history in Italy, specifically here in Tuscany. In fact, it's believed that Cabernet Franc was a gift from France to Catherine de' Medici when she married King Henry II back in 1533. And some of the earliest mentionings of the grape actually date to this time period. Now today, 11% of Italy's Cab Franc vines are here in Tuscany. It's about 700 hectares, and it is the #1 region for the grape variety in the country. Now, getting back to Luca, he and his partner Elena, they established Duemani in 2001, and the site that they chose for their vineyards was actually previously uncultivated to vines, but they chose it with two grape varieties in mind. Cab Franc, of course, because it's Luca's favorite grape variety, but also Syrah, which is Elena's. Now, I kind of want to drill down to this spot and try and get a better understanding as to why I think that Cab Franc has made a happy home for itself here in this part of Tuscany. So as I mentioned, we're on the Tuscan coast and we're part of the IGP, the Costa Toscana, which spans 379 kilometers down the western coast of central Italy. Now, specifically where the vineyards are in the municipality of Ribarbella in the province of Pisa. We're about 20 kilometers due north of Bolgheri, and we're about 10 kilometers in from the coast. Now, we are at a relatively southerly latitude here for Cab Franc vines in terms of where they are typically planted in Europe. But if you recall from a previous video, what is believed to be the birthplace of Cab Franc is actually Basque country. And San Sebastian is on the exact same latitude as where we are here in Ribarbella at about 43.3 degrees north latitude. So we are dealing with a slightly more Mediterranean climate, but there are some important moderating factors at play here. Specifically, as I mentioned, we're 10 kilometers from the Tyrrhenian Sea, and this is a large body of water. And when we think of bodies of water and how they moderate the region's climate, we have to keep in mind, well, how big is the body of water and how close are we to said body of water? So if we were in the Loire Valley, as an example, if we were 10 kilometers away from the Loire or the Vienne River, there would almost be zero impact from those bodies of water on the vineyard's microclimate. Why? Because they're small relative to how far away we are from those bodies of water. Now here, we're 10 kilometers away from the Tyrrhenian Sea, but this is a massive body of water. So there is a large or a strong kind of cooling influence from the Tyrrhenian Sea here in the vineyards. In addition to that, we're kind of in the foothills of the Poggio di Nocola. This is a mountain range that runs east to west. And then there's another mountain range on the opposite side, and this creates the Val di Cecina. And this valley pulls in these cool breezes from the Tyrrhenian Sea. So there's a constant flow of cool air that helps to lower the overall temperature of the vineyards. In addition to that, we have altitude on our side here. The vineyards are kind of between 200 to 250 meters above sea level, so there is also a cooling influence from the altitude as well. Now, in terms of the soils here, the geology of this part of Italy is really complex, and I went down this rabbit hole of papers reading about the geology of central Italy, and it got a wee bit intense. So I'm going to take a step back and keep things pretty general here. So the soils were sort of formed around the Middle Jurassic period, about 180 or so million years ago, and they make up a geological formation known as the Ligurian Domain, and they're of sedimentary origin. But what really matters here in terms of Cab Franc is the vineyards. There is a high proportion of clay in the vineyards here, about 40%. And clay holds more moisture, and overall it is a cooler soil. It takes longer for clay to warm up during the springtime, and it also stays cooler throughout the growing season as well. And this creates a nice cool microclimate for Cab Franc. In addition to that, we have some nice sized calcareous rocks or stones in the vineyard and a bit of sand here, and this will help with drainage, which is also important for Cabernet Franc. Now, in terms of Duemani, they have 7.5 hectares of Cabernet Franc vines planted, and they were planted in 2001. And the vineyards are planted at a relatively high density, 8,400 vines per hectare. That's about 3,400 vines per acre. And this high density planting creates more competition between the plants. And this helps to manage yields, particularly when vines are on the younger side and they tend to be a little bit more productive. In addition to that, the vineyards are all farmed biodynamically. They have Demeter certification, and they are kind of in this wonderful isolated pocket here in Riparbella, and there is this natural flora and fauna kind of all around the vineyard, so it creates this wonderful kind of enhanced biodiversity to the site. Now, from a winemaking perspective, we're dealing with destemmed fruit here, 100% indigenous yeast fermentation, and the fermentation and aging was all done in cement. And this wine, this CiFra, is really the lifeblood of the winery. It represents their largest production, and it ranges, depending on the vintage, anywhere from 15,000 to about 20,000 bottles per year. So let's tuck in. On the nose, I'm getting some really nice, sweet, kind of succulent red fruits. Cherry, a little bit of sort of strawberry here. There's a little bit of like a red plum note as well. And it does lean more fruit forward. The herbaceousness and the pyrazines kind of take a bit of a backseat, but you do know it's Cab Franc. There's this lovely kind of herbal undertone, kind of rosemary, maybe even a touch of bay leaf. And there is a certain gauziness or airiness to the nose in terms of sort of this sort of, you can kind of almost see that there's sort of like an airiness to the nose, if that makes any sense. It's not compact, it's kind of a bit more broad in that way, but it's not super aromatic per se, but there is a nice fragrance, a nice perfume to the nose. The acidity is really bright, nice and lively. There's a nice sort of mouth-watering kind of impact there in terms of the acidity. Those fruits come through beautifully as well. Very similarly to the nose, I'm getting a little bit more of a tart morello cherry thing on the palate, which is quite nice because it adds this sort of added sensation of freshness. And there's also a great spice undertone to the wine. Kind of like a star anise, licorice anise seed thing going on, which I like. The tannins are really particular. They are definitely, they're fine. They're relatively low, I would say. They have a nice silkiness in the mouth and a certain degree of sort of supple sort of texture to them. There is a sense that there's some really strong winemaking know-how behind this wine in terms of there is a certain degree of polish to the tannins, although they do have a nice kind of little bit of a grip there on the finish as well, which is nice. All in all, I think that this wine has a really sort of casual feel to it, and that's not a slight. It does have a sense that, the wine does have a sense that you can, that it was sort of made with the intention of being consumed a little bit more on the younger side. It's meant to be kind of fun, a little bit jovial, rather than kind of laying it down forever. It's meant to be consumed when it's young. But at the same time, there's a sense of refinement. And when I was making my notes on this wine, I instantly kind of thought of like the quintessential European male that somehow magically manages to pull off like tennis sneakers and a blazer and look kind of casual, but also really pulled together and polished at the same time. And it's a really weird analogy, but that's literally kind of what my brain thought of. Is there is this sense of kind of casual chill to this wine, but there is some polish and refinement as well, which I kind of dig. But it's a great introduction to Cab Franc from Tuscany, and I have several more examples that I'm going to tuck into at some point, so look forward to that. And if you have a favorite Cab Franc from Tuscany, let me know what it is in the comments below. And of course, as always, I will be back again soon with another wine. Cheers.